welcome everyone. We're excited to get started with the Candidates Forum. So I'm Mariama Shahid, and I am the founder and CEO here at Global Prep. We're excited that we are one of the IPS Innovation Schools, and we offer bilingual education for our students. And so we hosted today the Candidate Forum because we so believe in the importance of families being engaged in the process and understanding what does it mean to have representatives in the IPS school board that support and understand the needs of our community. So I'm looking forward to this event tonight because I know there's a lot that I'm going to gain in listening to the amazing women that we have here tonight, and I'm sure you will as well. So I want to ask Ashley from RISE INDY. Thank you, RISE, for allowing us to host. We're excited you all selected our school as one of the host sites, and we're looking forward to this event. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. So I'm really excited about this conversation as well. Again, my name is Ashley Thomas. I am the Senior Director of Community Impact and Organizing with RISE INDY, and I'm also an IPS mom of 3, which I believe are my 3 most important jobs. To get us kick-started, so we have candidates that are running for IPS School Board to represent IPS School District 5, IPS School District 3, and IPS at large this evening. The IPS District 3 race is the only race that is the contested race, so meaning there are 2 people running as candidates in that race, and the other 2 are actually just individuals who are just here representing to make sure that we are aware of who they are. So I definitely am really excited about all 4 of these candidates showing up this evening. Also, another thing that I wanted to lift up, the questions at the very top of this presentation and conversation have actually been drafted from individuals like you who have submitted, parents who have submitted responses, questions, thoughts, what are their concerns, to be able to lift up, to drive the direction of this conversation. But also, we're going to be taking questions from the audience as well. So if you see those little cards that have a RISE emblem on the back on your tables, you have an opportunity to submit additional questions for the end of the forum, and I definitely encourage you to utilize those for any questions or concerns or things that you feel like we've not addressed yet for these candidates that we can have lifted up at the end of the forum. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we want to make sure that the voice of parents and community are lifted up in this space. So, without further ado, I would like to first introduce our moderator for the evening. Her name is Shcarlett Estrada. She is a proud wife and mother of 2 beautiful children. She is a current student at the Excel Center and a strong, supportive volunteer supporting the school and her community. She is a proud, very proud, Global Prep Academy mom. And since this is a conversation for families and community to learn more, she will be moderating this conversation tonight. So let's give her a round of applause and let's begin.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes. So we want to personally thank all the candidates who are here today for this conversation, and we will first begin with each candidate taking a minute to state their name, the IPS district you're running in, and why you decided to run. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Kristen Phair, and we'll run our way down.
Hello. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Phair. I live in District 3. I'm a mom of 3 kids, all IPS kids. They go to George Washington Carver, IPS 87. It's at 21st and MLK, so not too far from here. 3rd grader, 1st grader, pre-K kid. First year that all of them are in one place. So I'd say this journey started for me a year ago when I started volunteering significant amounts of time in the classroom following COVID. The teachers, we had a lot of gaps in personnel from sickness, from early retirements. We all remember how that went down. So I really got a good look at what was going on in the schools, and it was heartbreaking because our teachers were struggling to meet the needs of our kids that were only exacerbated by COVID, while also struggling to meet district mandates that weren't always giving them the opportunity to meet the kids' needs. So seeing that definitely motivated me to want to become more involved in IPS as a whole and find solutions to those things. Then with the advent of Rebuilding Stronger, I was pushed a little more to want to be part of the solutions because I do champion IPS for trying to get the equity piece right that we've never gotten right, and we are dealing with a looming budget crisis. So for all of those reasons, that's why I'm here. I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you for including me.
No voy a decir todas mis respuestas en español, pero quería empezar en español porque casi nunca empezamos así y veo que hay un intérprete, pero a veces tenemos que escuchar en este idioma primero. I just said briefly that I'm not going to say all of my answers in Spanish, but given the community that we're in right now, I'm going to start my first answer in Spanish, and then I'll translate what I said. Mi nombre es Nicole Carey y soy candidato para el Distrito 5. Es el distrito donde nosotros estamos ahora, entonces voy a representar este distrito. La razón principal que yo quería es estar en la junta del distrito es porque me importa mucho la comunidad, es la comunidad de donde voy a criar mis 5 niños. 3 de mis niños asisten aquí a esta escuela y es importante para mí que nuestras comunidades se unan y que nuestra voz se escuche, ¿verdad? El futuro de nuestros niños es muy importante y no siempre todas las voces se elevan. Entonces esa es mi prioridad principal. The primary reason, my name is Nicole Carey and I'm running for IPS Commissioner in District 5, which is this district where it represents the community that we're in right now, represents the school. The primary reason that I'm running is because this is my community. This is our community. It's the community where I'm raising my 5 children. 3 of my children attend this school where we are right now. And one of the reasons I chose this school is because bridging communities where we are so far apart from each other is something that's really important to me. It's a really important value. I think that parents and teachers and students in the district have an opportunity to work closely together. And I am very interested in elevating community voice, our voice that's not always heard.
Hello, good evening everyone, and buenos tardes. That was a big deal because my Spanish is terrible. But I try because I know where I am and I want to make sure that I feel that you feel and know that I want you to understand me and for us to understand one another. I won't say anything else in Spanish, which will make you all feel better. And you'll probably understand my English a little bit better than my terrible Spanish. But I want to work on it. I want to get better at it. My name is Hope Hampton, and I'm running in District 3 to be a commissioner for our IPS school board. I'm doing that because I'm a social worker, I am a mother, I'm an entrepreneur in this community. I went to IPS schools myself. I graduated from Northwest High School, and I have a teenager who attends Shortridge High School. We have fallen in love really with the IPS process, well, at least with the high school system that my son is a part of. He has found a community there, and that is super important to me. At the same time, I think it's super important for all of the kids in our district to find community in the schools that they belong to and feel a sense of belonging and feel that they are achieving in a way that will allow them to have the future that they want and be successful after they graduate from the school system. We should all want that. It impacts our community, it impacts our families, and so it's extremely important to me that there's equity across the board, that we are transparent as a board, and that we are accountable as a board. So I'm primarily running so that I can make sure that I'm a commissioner that encourages the rest of the board and the system to be transparent with families. I think some of the things that we're dealing with now and some of the frustrations we have as parents around communication or not even knowing enough, if we feel that way, about the plans that are being rolled out really are rooted in the district getting to a place where it can be more and more transparent with parents and families so that we are aware of what's going on and we can be at the table before it's done and be at the table when we're having conversations about what is going to happen and what parents feel are really best for their children. So I want to make sure that I'm at that table so that parents feel empowered all the way across the board, not just a few parents, but all parents.
Good evening, I'm Angelia Moore. I am not going to pretend that my Spanish is worth sharing, but I am running for Commissioner for IPS at large. And the reason I'm running is, one, I'm a former student. I am the mother of 4 students. 3 have graduated from the district. 1 is still in the district. I'm a former employee of the district. And I think it's important to make sure that all voices are heard and that all information is shared. When we talked about, my colleagues talked about transparency, I think it's important that we are open, honest, and available. I believe that the district operates schools, but the community operates the district. And so as a longtime citizen of Indianapolis, a proud alumni of George Washington, and then the mom of 4 students who have gone through the system, we did choice long before choice was an option. Because we had to make sure that they were in places that were best suited for them. And so I want parents to not have to go through the hoops and hurdles that we did to make sure that our children were educated appropriately, and make sure that the system is aware of what students and communities are feeling, and also bring back the community into the district. Again, the district belongs to the community, and so the community needs to make sure they're doing their part to make sure students are heard and given the opportunity to grow and learn.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Well, I want to say it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. We're going to go ahead and get started with the first question. Please, if you need me to repeat the question, because it's, we got a lot of talking, you guys can feel free to ask again, and I will definitely repeat the question for you, ladies. So the first one's going to be regarding school safety. There has been a lot of news across the country about school safety, and new trainings have been implemented in the schools across Indianapolis to be sure that students feel safe. What additional policies or programs would you suggest for the IPS to implement to further protect our students while in school and traveling to school? And we're going to go ahead and start with Nicole. No, I'm sorry, Angie.
So there has been a lot of issues around safety, like you said, nationally and locally. When we think about transportation to and from school, our high school is using public transportation. Although that is not something that has not happened before, we need to make sure that we are not setting our students up for failure. I would consider the time of high school starts as one of the concerns, making sure that students know how to get to a safe space. Again, bringing the community back in, what community organizations or buildings are open for their safety while they wait on transportation. And then thinking about what crisis training can be done to keep us from calling the police every time something happens with our students. We don't want to be a part of the direct school-to-prison pipeline, so how can we make sure that our staff, our teachers, our safety resource officers are trained in crisis intervention before we do arrest?
All right, yeah. So now we're going to go with Hope Hampton.
As it relates to school safety, you'll hear me. As I said before, I've been a social worker my entire career and have worked inside of schools as a therapist and worked with students who sometimes I'm dealing with fights or sometimes I'm dealing with kiddos who are dealing with trauma or they're dealing with things at home related that they're bringing stress, anger, frustration into the school. Those things are happening. We all know what is happening nationally, and we've seen, and we are all getting phone calls from schools around the city of shutdowns and lockdowns because there are dangerous things happening either around our school buildings or inside our school buildings. And so as a parent, I know we're all concerned about our kids, but as Angie said, one of the things I agree with is that what we don't want is to be deeply policing our children inside of schools. We don't want to turn into a place where children are being led away in handcuffs as a consistent practice. So for me, adding mental health support, additionally beefing that up is important. We've even talked about this nationally with some of our police departments, having some social workers respond instead of just police for certain situations. And I think that we can use that model inside schools as well, having our social workers be a better part of supporting situations that may seem like they're related to school safety, but that may just be something that we can de-escalate with the right professional who can help a child or an adult who is in trauma or is in trouble or is exhibiting behavior that might be violent. And so I think social work and mental health support are important, crisis intervention and training, and then I think it's also important to train many of our kids on how to work through crises themselves and prepare them to be peer counselors with one another. I know peer counseling is happening in many of our schools, but I think that we should bring along even more students who we don't necessarily automatically see as the peer counselor, but showing them that they too can be someone who creates peace inside the school building. And so I think there are kids that can be trained that are not currently being trained.
Great. So real quick, just to make sure that the people in the back are listening, we will definitely turn up the volume a little, or down, I'm sorry. There we go, perfect, we got it figured out, thank you. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I would think Hope would be an excellent person to ask this question, given her background in social work. I really do believe that that is a key lever that we need to pull on to figure out some of the things that are missing about school safety. Every family, every parent, every student deserves to feel safe, to feel that their child is safe in school. However, I do believe that we need to take dollars away from how much we are spending in school resource officers and policing our students. I think that money could be much better spent with licensed mental health care professionals that know how to de-escalate situations, that can help create safe environments within our school without introducing our students to the criminal justice system. I would love to see IPS streamlined as we're going through this major rebuilding, restructuring. Proposal. I really want to see IPS streamline our discipline approach, because to reflect what everyone else has said up here, the various schools in our district currently, if you look at the data, the suspension rates across the board are vastly different. And we also know that kids of color, especially male kids of color, are suspended and expelled at a higher rate than their white peers. And as Ms. Moore said, that creates the pipeline to prison. And I personally witnessed that as a deputy state public defender. I would critically analyze my clients' transcripts, looking for issues and helping them find ways to challenge their convictions. And in looking through their history, time and time again, it all started in middle school or earlier with punitive suspensions. So it's a real thing, and it's not safe for those kids to keep getting suspended. problem for our society. The only other thing I would want to say about safety, another way IPS can streamline something to help with safety, I would say, is to streamline our school calendars, because not all schools in our district are aligned with the same calendar. So you can potentially have, and especially now that we're taking away a majority of the K-8 models. So if you have a 7th grader, or I'm sorry, a 6th grader starting at a new school who is tasked with taking care of their 3rd grade sister, and the 3rd grade sister gets out, I don't know, at a different time of day, then they have a gap in coverage. If their holidays don't line up, then the parents have to find childcare, and that's a safety issue, I would say. So, yeah, I just want to see IPS streamline some things. That's an easy way that isn't going to, it's an easy way to take little steps to make our kids safer, I'd say.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Now we're going to go on to school performance and continuous improvement systems. So there's a lot of information about school performance and other ways for families to decide which school fits best for each student. When you think about the ways that schools across the district are evaluated for performance, what are some missing metrics or things that should be considered and why? And we can start with School Hampton and circle our way back around. Yeah.
On this question, I will go into several things that I think are missing, but I will just focus on the thing that is most important, I think, to me at this moment, and that is, we've gotten here, we do have this plan, and the biggest metric is that we're replicating, but we're not, and we're talking about the fact that some of the things that we are replicating are showing market success and improvement. What we're not talking about is that the achievement gap is still wide, even when we are replicating great programming. So it doesn't mean that some of the programs aren't wonderful and that they are not producing good outcomes for some kids. But I think that we need to get to the metrics that show, are all children being raised up by this system? So what we're hearing is, yes, they do improve some when they're in these environments, but the achievement gap is still really vast between children of color and their white peers. And so it doesn't matter that we're replicating things that work well for some kids. We need to be replicating programs that work well for kids who are truly falling behind in the system. And so I think we need to find out the metrics and find out from those parents what they truly need, and find out if we can create programming or create schools that work best for those kids.
Okay, so this is probably my favorite question of the night. I don't know what you're going to ask, but this really grinds my gears. So I believe that measuring proficiency with test scores is one way that we can see how our students are faring, but it is not the only way. And I think we put so much importance on testing. But tell me the data that says that a student that does really well on a test, on a state test, has a really great life outcome. And I think the question that we should be asking ourselves is, what is the purpose of school? And we have to center ourselves in what are we providing to the community and for our students so that they have better life outcomes, not just did they do really good in 3rd grade on this reading test. And so not to say that I am not a fan of measuring proficiency. I think it's extremely important, and I will echo what Hope said about paying special attention to achievement gaps. But I also would like to measure growth and how well we're serving our multilingual learners. I would like to measure not just graduation rates, but beyond graduation, what are the life outcomes of our students? And I think measuring all of those things and the student experience, the family experience, could transform the way we do education.
I loved that answer. So I was thinking about this today, actually, because with this new all-choice model we're going into, everybody's going to have to make a choice. We're all going to get on Enroll Indy and pick our school. And what I think your specific question is what do parents want to see or need to see to make these choices more than what's already on there? I don't know. Maybe I didn't summarize that correctly. But I was looking at Enroll Indy today. And first, I don't know too many people who had a really easy time navigating an Enroll Indy the first time they had to do it. It's easier with each child, but we're going to have a whole population of new people coming in that are going to have to navigate this somewhat complicated website. So here's what I would like to see that I don't see. I see the schools rated A, B, C, D, F. I don't like the letter grades in the first place, but if we're going to have them on there, as I understand it, some schools, if you're a newer school, you have the option to be measured by growth alone, those first 3 years. And if you are an established school, you're measured on performance and growth. And it's not that I have a problem with two different metrics being used, but I have a problem with parents not knowing that this A is based on growth alone, and this A is based on performance and growth alone. So that's one change I would make. Another thing I'd like to see is I would like to see it front and center with everything else, what the school suspension, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, expulsion rates are like. Because as I said earlier, they vary greatly among our schools. And one thing I found is that there is a high percentage of students with disabilities that are being suspended from some of our schools. If I have a special needs child, I want that information front and center before I make my decision about where I send them. I want to know if transportation will be provided for my children. And actually, now that I say that, that might be in there. But I think there are little tweaks that we can make to this system to help families really get a whole look at what school they're thinking about and can go into a choice, make that choice in a way that will best fit their family.
So when you asked the question about what else can we measure besides just our proficiency scores, I think my colleagues have said everything that could be done, but what is that environment in school? How do students feel about the school? One of the tools that are being used now is Panorama. Most of us have gotten a Panorama survey. We've had to fill it out around the climate, culture, and rigor of the student. And I think that's important. If my child can pass the test, it's good. But if my child feels uncomfortable in the school that they're attending, it's not. And so when we talk about how do we rate schools or what other things could we use, I want to know about the entire environment of the school and that entire experience. We talked about safety. Do children feel safe in the building? Are they safe to be authentically whoever they are? We talked about multilingual learners. What are we doing to make sure that we are representing the students that are in their building, evaluating those students based on their individual needs, and that those students feel safe as they matriculate, not just through K-8, but once they matriculate from high school into post-secondary education and enrollment or enlistment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And now we're going to move on to teacher and school leader equality. So in the current rebuilding stronger plan is voted as is. There will be a few schools that may close or combine while leaving some teachers and leaders of all IPS school types displaced. What is the policy or process? Yeah, go here. So we're going to talk about the teacher and school leader equality. In the current rebuilding stronger plan is voted as is. There will be a few schools that may close or combine while leaving some teachers and leaders of all IPS school types displaced. What is a policy or process that you would recommend for IPS to use to evaluate the quality of displaced teachers and school leaders to be sure that districts select high quality teachers and leaders to work and lead the remaining schools? And we can start with, Nicole.
When I think about high quality teachers and school leaders,
I know that that's something that is a national crisis right now, finding high quality, or there's a teacher shortage just in general. So we can't afford to lose our high quality teachers or school leaders with any of this plan. So the plan involves some incentives and stipends for teachers to stay, but I do think it's really critical that we have an evaluation in our retention model. So why are teachers staying? What is the climate? How do they feel? How do they feel supported? Do they have enough prep time? Do school leaders feel like they are having enough support from the district in order to run a school in a pandemic, in the crisis that we're living right now? It's not all easy answers, but it is our role to make sure that the climate and culture inside of each school is something that will be beneficial for students. And in order for that to happen, teachers have to feel whole and they have to feel ready to show up every day.
Great answer. Great answer. Now we're going to move on to Nicole, and we'll circle our way around.
So, would you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. So with the current rebuilding charter plan voted as is, there will be a few schools that may close or combine, while leaving some teachers and leaders of all IPS school types displaced. What is a policy or process that you would recommend for IPS to use to evaluate the quality of displaced teachers and school leaders to be sure that the district selects high quality teachers and leaders to work and lead the remaining schools?
So you're talking about displaced teachers and what we would do for them, but also then asking how we would select good school leaders to move on with the rest of the plan.
Yes.
Is that the question? So, okay, good. I think that you said something earlier, Nicole, that I think fits perfectly here when we talk about displaced teachers. You mentioned something about the quality of life of students beyond high school, beyond their time in the district, and how do we measure that? How do we know people are being successful and that this district is allowing them to become a productive citizen who can add to value to our community? I feel the same way about displaced teachers, that if they've been a part of this district, given their blood, their sweat, their tears, invested in kids, that we should follow up with them even if they are not working with us. I think it is important for IPS to take some responsibility for them being displaced and care about their mental health as they move forward, whether it is being responsible about recommendations or support for other work and other jobs, and being able to continue to teach if they are good teachers, but just being displaced. Secondarily, I know that we've had some good conversations this week. Some of us have been able to have some conversations around the plan. I had a great conversation with my student's principal yesterday, and we talked about the middle school model and what it's going to look like for some teachers to have to learn they've not taught Montessori, they've not taught at a CFI school, and now they're going to be going through training so that they can begin to do that work well. That is very, very important that they're not isolated doing that training in my mind, and we had some open dialogue about that. I said it's great that they're going to be trained, but once they're trained, are they going to be isolated? Will they be able to talk across schools with other schools who've already done this well? I'm assuming they will. But at the same time, we had some conversations about how hard it is for teachers at the high school level to bring in students who aren't prepared for high school because middle school didn't do that preparation work. I think we need to offer support to teachers from the elementary, middle school, high school level so that they're able to get kids ready in terms of elementary and then the transition to middle school and then the transition from middle school to high school. Because that gives support to the teacher ultimately because they're working with kiddos who've been prepared from the other building. So I think it's a scaffolding conversation and working where they're working hand in hand and you don't just leave one building, go to the next one, and now a new set of teachers inherits those issues. The new set of teachers already knows that there's been some preparation for the level of responsibility and independence that comes with the next steps in school.
So when we talk about the Rebuilding Stronger plan and the merger and closure of some of our schools, we do know that I appreciate the district's support around those who will be directly impacted and those who will be indirectly impacted. That's a financial incentive only. We know that we still have many job openings. We know that some of our teachers of color are going to be highly displaced, and we've talked about making sure we have proper representation in the classroom. So I would start with, before we let a teacher go or close a school, that those teachers are offered an opportunity to apply to the positions that are still open in the district. When we talk about leaders being displaced, I would do the same thing, making sure that that opportunity is offered. We know that the schools that we're closing, for whatever reason, will be opening. There'll be administration, there's principals, assistant principals. Where can we lean in? As Hope said, these teachers have already given time, effort, and energy to our students. What supports can we wrap around them to make sure that they, if they're not selected, have a good outcome for themselves personally, so that is the wraparound services for them, mental health support, job placement support, letters of recommendation if we can't hire them, but also making sure that we are looking at what is going to be best for students, and that our students who will not only we have displaced teachers, will have displaced students, and what supports can we make sure that those students have for their success as well.
Okay. Now we're gonna finish up. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're asking our teachers to stay with our district in the face of these overwhelming changes without explaining how they're going to be transitioned or cared for. And our teachers union stood up at the last school board meeting and made that apparent. Now, whether or not the district has addressed those concerns, I haven't heard, but to me that was a huge statement on the pulse of what our teachers are feeling right now. They aren't feeling, they're not feeling cared for. So, and you know, as we lose teachers, the people that bear the weight of that are not only our children, but it's the teachers that remain, because their classrooms get bigger, and the behaviors that teachers are dealing with after COVID are exacerbated. So with a larger classroom, you're having more of that as well. I want to see our district get great, not only do I want us to retain our best teachers, but to retain them, they need help. They need help in the form of teaching assistants. And we can't expect, the teaching assistants I know are every bit as much a teacher to my children as the teacher themselves. And these often women get paid next to nothing. And you can make more as a substitute teacher than you can as a teacher's assistant in our school district. So that's something that I need IPS. I want IPS to think long and hard about. Getting more teachers' assistants into the classrooms to help our teachers and pay them a fair wage. I think that would go a long way to retaining our teachers, because it's great that we're focusing on a robust curriculum with Rebuilding Stronger, but if our teachers can't, if we're dealing with behaviors of a large classroom of kids, they're not going to be able to teach that curriculum without help. Thank you.
Great answers. Yeah, okay, so we are going to move on to the next question, and it's regarding equitable funding. As parents mentioned in the survey, equity is an important issue when it comes to school funding. Should public school funding dollars follow a child to whatever public school they attend? And we're going to start with Angie, Kristen, Hope, Nicole.
So, should funding follow the student? So I've had students in both traditional schools, innovation schools, and charter partner schools. And so as a taxpayer, I would love for my child's dollars to go with my child, because I pay the taxes to make sure they're educated properly. The district is a large district. We have a very complex family model. that most school districts do not have. So I think it's a simple question, but if we base it simply on our students, then our dollars should follow our students, and making sure that every student has the opportunity to get those extra services and supports that might not be happening if they don't have those dollars followed.
It was already answered. So thank you, but I will say this, I too am a, IPS parent, but at the same time, I've had the opportunity or had to make different choices for my son over the years. We've done all sorts of different school situations for him. We've done a private model, he's been in a Montessori school, he's been in a charter school for middle school, and now we are experiencing IPS as a high school family. And I most certainly think that dollars should follow. And as I had a conversation again with the principal yesterday, one of the things I said to him just as a parent was, what's most important to me, first of all, is that my child is happy in the building. Like, I can tell when he's happy at school. I hear that there are relationships and mentors and friends and teachers whose names I get hear called regularly, who pour into him, people who mentor him, and that's very important to me. Along with the academics, which I know if he didn't feel happy in his school and he didn't feel comfortable and safe there, he probably wouldn't be able to succeed academically either. And so, yes, it's extremely important to me that as a parent, that all parents have the opportunity to make the very best choice for their children with the tax dollars that we pay. And so if there's public education available to them with those dollars that follow them, I think that's very important.
Dollars following children, I think it's a legal thing, right? Like, it happens, it has to happen. I think right now our district is spread really thin. And what I am seeing, and I believe all of us see, and part of the reason why we're going through a Rebuilding Stronger initiative, is that when enrollment in a school declines, the kids that are left in that school no longer are well-resourced. So that's a big problem, and that's an equity problem. So I want to see IPS focus its energy on the schools that are going through these great transitions under the proposal so that they provide the robust, equitable education that every child deserves.
And I will just add that I think the answer to your question is very complex. I think we do have to think about the financial stability of the district, and we also have to understand that we live in an educational landscape of choice right now. And so there is no, let's take it back 20 years and go back to how it was. Students can have the choice to go from school to school, and they need to have equitable funding where they are. And so that, I don't think that the answer is a simple yes or no. I think it is, how do we make sure that the most dollars serve the most vulnerable kids, and not just follow them wherever they go, but making sure that our kids of color in particular are not being left behind in those transitions.
Okay, yeah, and now we're going to go into needs of students experiencing homelessness. So there are around 1,000 students experiencing homelessness and more experiencing housing insecurity. What should IPS do to better meet these students' needs? And we can work our way back.
So one thing that I really do appreciate about the Rebuilding Stronger initiative is that they have created these zones that, so long as the student, so we know that kids who experience homelessness are more transient because their families they don't know where they're going to be next. So under the plan, if you move, and you move within your zone, you will be bused to that same school. So that's going to give those kids stability. And we know how important stability is once you're in that school community, it is your community. You have access to your social worker, you have access to special needs educators, should that be necessary. So transportation for the kids who have high mobility, I think is huge. Now, I think there's always more we can do to help our most vulnerable populations, and I would argue that they are one of our most vulnerable populations. So anytime IPS can provide them with wraparound services to those students and their families, it would serve IPS as a whole better.
Angie, I'm sorry if I'm going to steal your answer, but I think I know what you might say because it's what I feel strongly is that IPS must do a better job partnering with the community. There are community organizations that can assist with whatever a student might need in whatever situation they are in, but we as a district have not traditionally streamlined those relationships in a way that would allow us to be true pillars in the community to help students that are in that vulnerable situation and their families. And so really encouraging community partnerships so that each student has wraparound services. Yeah. Oh. I had a conversation with a shop owner today in my district who, and he's not the first person to say it, I was surprised at how frustrated he was with what he felt was a burden for the school district to feed kids and do some of the things that he's seen us have to do through the pandemic. It was a lot, it was an interesting conversation. He's like, I can't believe, all that IPS has to do, and they have to feed kids now, and children who are hungry, and I was thinking, and here we are having this conversation about students and stability and how can they learn if they're not feeling safe and secure in buildings. We talked about safety and security, and we weren't even talking about homelessness. So when you add homelessness to it, now we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with instability, we're dealing with so many other issues. And so the wraparound supports and services that could come with these partnerships that if we were to be a little less insular as a district and be a bit more open to bringing in these relationships. We had a great forum just a few weeks ago where Edna Martin Christian Center was involved, and they were there with their school partner. And it was clear they have a very close relationship and that they get a lot of support and many, many wraparound services from them. I think it's important for us to have schools that feel autonomous enough to be able to create relationships, and even if the district wanted to take the lead at a higher level in encouraging these partnerships and not just hoping that the schools will do it locally, because we have kids that have to be educated, whether they have a stable home life or whether they are homeless, they should have a positive educational experience. The school is still responsible for getting them on their way educationally so that they can have a stable future and a successful future. And so we can't take our hands off of feeding, clothing, supporting the wraparound services and supports that we need, especially in a district, in a school, and in a country that has created a system that really has harmed children. So many of the children who are homeless are in those situations as a result of parents who weren't educated well either. So we can take some responsibility, and at this time, now that we're being called upon to do this because of sort of a mess that we've created as a society, we need to do what we have to do for kids. And so it's very important to me that we do the partnering and offer the supportive wraparound services to especially to our homeless students, and care about their mental health needs. And the one thing I would like to add to that is I think that those supports should follow. So if I need to leave that school, I shouldn't have to leave my mental health support person. So if that is a licensed clinical social worker or a therapist or other supportive networks, community members, and partnerships that serve youth, they should still be able to mobily meet that child at whichever school they are in, so they continue to have that continuity.
So I can say, speaking as a former employee of the district does a great job supporting their McKinney-Vento students in their traditionally managed schools. That support isn't offered throughout the IPS family of schools at the same level. And so one of the biggest things is understanding that there is a law that supports transportation, stability, movement for any child that is homeless or housing insecure. That works. It's a federal law, so it works. The district is very in tune to it. But like Nicole said, it's not the district's responsibility to do it all. It is part of the community's responsibility. We have great resources to support homelessness and to deter homelessness and make sure families are safe. Hope mentioned being at KIP last week or week before last, and the partnership between KIP and Anna Martin. That partnership is built just for the services. It speaks directly to what could happen if a school is supported by the community. I was previously employed by Anna Martin and was able to help build out their education zone. And we had families that would come to school. I share this story all the time. One family came in, there was flooding in their apartment. The apartment, mom couldn't reach anybody's apartment, so she sent the kids to school as they were. Clothes were damp, everything. We made sure they had clothes for the day, but we called on a community partner. American Red Cross went out, talked to the family. Not only did they place the family that was in the school that we served, but 18 other families were housed that night. So all 18 of them were housing and stable. The place where they were living was not feasible for them to stay. They got housing that night. The American Red Cross was able to contact the landlord and the health department and get things fixed. So the community is ready to support and lend a hand. We just have to know how to make sure that those connections are happening so that educators, because the teacher notified us at Anna Martin, and Anna Martin took it from there, so that educators can focus on education and let the community do what they do best. There are licensed, there's just a plethora of resources out there so that homelessness is not this is one of our most vulnerable populations of students, but if we follow the law and use the resources that we have, our students will be you wouldn't even know that they had missed a beat.
Great, thank you, ladies. Now on to the needs of English learners. So Indianapolis Public Schools has about 5,700 English learners, which is about 800 more than 5 years ago. What should schools be doing to ensure they're meeting the needs of English learners? And we can do Nicole, Kristen, and then Angie, and then Hope.
So I think there are certain laws around or guidelines for teachers that need to be certified to teach emergent bilingual students. However, something that I've always said and that I believe is that every teacher is the teacher of and needs to be certified to teach our emergent bilingual students. Meaning it is not, we do need specialists, but every teacher needs professional development in how to serve students that are speaking more than one language, and recognizing that that is a superpower, that is not a disadvantage, and I don't believe that every person necessarily is taught that way to believe that. And so making sure that all of our teachers have that high expectation for all of our students, not just the ELL teacher, but their math teacher, their science teacher, their ELA teacher, they all have that same high expectation, helping our multilingual learners achieve. So, yeah, as far as when I think of our English language learners, I think of their family as a whole. And while they are in our school, and so my children's school has, pretty sure it's 24% English language learners. So we have a fairly high population. And I know they receive services, and I love what Nicole said about every teacher should be trained in competence in those ways. When I think about their families that usually are also English language learners and potentially don't speak any English at all, there's a huge barrier to access to IPS. And if we think about, so our FACE coordinator, which is, I learned is the same as your community engagement. I forget exactly what our title, but we were talking about it today. Our FACE coordinator, our family and communication engagement, she's bilingual. And I think not only should every school have a FACE representative, because they don't, and that's an equity issue. They should all be bilingual if we can do that, or if the district can manage that. And that's because families need to be able to talk to someone in their school building who can understand their concerns and educate those families on. Families in my school are just, the Spanish-speaking families in my school are just learning about rebuilding stronger because it's coming from the school, not from the district, but they're learning it from the school. I look at Enroll Indy and I'm thinking about how it's hard for me as an English speaker to navigate it. And you know what people do if they're having trouble navigating a computer system? They pick up the phone and call. Well, I also know that last year during enrollment, the wait time was really long. So it was extra long if you needed a Spanish-speaking translator. So who has time to be on hold for 40 minutes during their workday? On top of that, we're going to have a bunch more kids being enrolled this year. So I think IPS needs to think about whether we're equipped on the Enroll Indy side to handle the influx of families, especially our Spanish or English language learner families, bringing them along, making sure they're being meaningfully communicated with.
So for me, I think it sounds, I don't want to say it's a simple answer, but Nicole is correct. We shouldn't force our students to learn English when they come in with a second language. I love that she opens every forum we are on in Spanish because it is okay for them to speak their native language. I speak mine. I think as a district, we know that our second most highest population is our Spanish-speaking families. Everything that the district produces should be in at least English and Spanish. And at the school level, we have multiple schools that have different populations that where Spanish might not be their second language. And so whatever that second language is, information should come out in those two languages. It's imperative that we no longer expect everyone to adapt to our English because our families don't necessarily have that ability. A lot of our students are interpreting for their families, and we need to make sure that in the building we just serve those that, again, representation matters. We have in the school the staff, the teachers, the administrators, the office staff that are able to speak to the parents that are represented in that building. It could be the FACE team or whatever, but we need to look at it building by building, see what that second language is. But for the district, at the district level, nothing should come out that is not at least in English and Spanish, just because of the populations that we serve.
I would agree with so much of what's been said here by literally everyone on the panel. It is a multi-layered problem, and we are experiencing really cultural depth in our city that we haven't experienced in years. So it's not just Spanish-speaking individuals. We have lots of new languages that folks in Indianapolis may not have been exposed to before. And it's a good thing for our city, and it's a good thing for our district. But I would suggest, and maybe a step below Nicole's solution, which was everybody needs to be bilingual, and I'm totally for that. Wish I was one, and trying to grow there. But what I would say is maybe just a deeper layer, so that from the front door to the classroom, whether it is the FACE team, but it needs to be more than that. You need to feel that when you walk into the building, you are welcome, and that somebody will be able to speak in your language with you, from staffing at the front desk, all the way to FACE team, to social service support. If your child is sick, who do you talk to about that if you're an English language learner and the nurse in the office doesn't speak your language? That's a problem. It's a huge barrier. It is an equity issue. I can't even navigate taking my child to the doctor because we can't communicate with one another. So I think that we need to be looking at resources and ways to look at the languages that are in all of our buildings and then go deeper than just one or two people who are bilingual, or being really happy that we have a bilingual teacher and then one outward-facing person. and start looking at the way we staff the entire building, from the teaching staff to administration and to everyone who works there, and making sure that there are other languages being spoken so that the burden isn't just on one or two people in the building. And so not just the burden on them, but also it makes the families feel more welcome because you decided to do more than just have one person who can speak another language in this building.
Thank you, ladies. All right.
There we go. Okay, so following up that question with that question, what can the district do to recruit more bilingual teachers or teachers who can support English learners? And we'll work our way towards the end.
So I think paying our teachers a fair and competitive salary would be a good start. I also hear from teachers wanting professional development opportunities, leadership opportunities, opportunities to grow in different, what's it called, like continuing ed, offering that, and also giving them an environment where they can be successful, providing them with the resources they need, giving them a mentor as if you're talking about a new teacher, that first year should be mentored. Someone earlier talked about prep time. I mean, that's not just for bilingual speakers, but for all teachers. And I do think we should focus our resources on getting bilingual teachers, especially because our population of bilingual speakers is growing.
I think sometimes a racist and narrow-minded way of thinking is the answer is, well, we can't find a candidate that is qualified, right? That they're not the best candidate, or there's not enough around. And that's not true. I think when you have creativity and when you invest in a community, you can find qualified candidates. I think the building that we're in right now is proof of that. Global Prep has done a wonderful job of recruiting a very diverse staff that serves their students extremely well. And so I think it's part of our responsibility in the district to make sure that we are creating environments where our bilingual staff will want to come and stay. So part of that is equitable pay and fair and safe working environments and listening to what teachers and staff want. Hope?
I think that we were talking about our current teachers, and we obviously know how much support we've talked about equitable pay and how we feel like we know that our teachers are the hands and feet of all the work, and they are the ones that carry out these missions and take care of our children during the day, teach them and follow these lesson plans and implement curriculums. So everything that we're talking about, the people who have to do this, they are teachers. But when it comes to recruiting teachers who are Latinx or teachers who can be bilingual, I think it's important that we find a way to incentivize them. And they may not all come from Indianapolis. And so we need to look at other ways, look at partnering nationally with other organizations who might be able to refer teachers, but then we need to attract them to Indianapolis and help them to understand that they will have a community when they come here. Whether it is a community of other educators who teach English learners, which would be wonderful, but also just to allow them to see what Indianapolis can be for them and their families. And so I think that's important. We have to make this attractive. But I think it's really important for us to just build relationships with other organizations, whether it's Latinx leadership or nonprofits or national organizations who can offer to us, hey, there's a pool of candidates or people who are interested in teaching. What does Indianapolis have to offer if they come there? And so I think we need to realize that this is deeper. We're behind, really. So it's urgent. And so we're going to have to probably have a plan and a strategy to really do some good recruitment. And it won't just happen hoping that it's going to happen.
So how do we recruit? I think one of the biggest things is that we have to look beyond just our teaching staff. and understand we want environments that are supportive of all of our students. So, Shcarlett is a prime example of a parent who is doing something outside the norm. So how do we take and make sure that we're elevating Shcarlett across the district? Hiring a teacher is one thing, but making sure that a child feels welcome and loved in that building depends on everyone in the building. And how do we make that happen? By including our parents, our family, and again, our community into the building. So making sure that everything we do in that building supports those families would make it easier to recruit those that are bilingual, not just those that are bilingual, but those that care about the students that are in that building and are willing to do the work.
All right, well, thank you, ladies. That was it for my part, but we are definitely gonna get, so we had the audience ask questions, so we're gonna go ahead and work on those. Okay. Give me a second. So I have one here that says, I am a disabled parent to IPS students and have limited income, but due to no high school on the southeast side, I have to send my kids to school on the west side because there's no transportation provided. How do you plan on helping disabled parents get transportation for kids? Because public school transportation is not for every child. Ooh, okay, now we're ready. I love this, I gotta say I love this. So we're gonna work our way back, and we'll start with Angie.
I don't think I'm the only one saying this tonight. We know transportation is one of the hugest barriers the district faces simply because of the geographical size. We also know that currently our student population is small enough where about 4 years ago we closed some of the high schools. So getting students to school is every high school parent's challenge. And we're gonna have to be innovative. We're gonna have to be creative, think outside the box, and really put some energy and effort into finding resources for families who cannot utilize public transportation or whose students do not qualify for the yellow bus transportation.
I would think I know that we don't know everything about this budget, but I do think that when you're dealing with disabled families and students, that we have to make exceptions to things, and we have to create and carve out the resources to make sure that those particular families are able to get to school. A disability should not keep a parent or a child from getting to school, and if we don't have the transportation, it is not like we're saying that everyone on this side of town, because your school is here, we're going to provide a special, we're going to spend extra money to get you to school. Though, every student does matter, and we need to figure out the solutions to this transportation issue. But until the full issue is solved, we at least have to make sure we do something special and dig deeper for students who are incapable of getting there because of a disability.
I agree 100%. I think that transportation is one of the things that should not prohibit you from having a quality education. I won't say that I'm 100% knowledgeable about what the transportation issues are for high schools right now, but I do know that a part of the new plan is the division of enrollment zones, and if you attend a school inside of your enrollment zone, you will be provided transportation. I believe that that's a basic necessity that should be provided to all students.
And I heard two things in that question. One is the fact that there is a far distance to travel to your school, and the second being that travel is difficult because of the family having disabilities. So I would echo what everyone has said regarding the transportation element, and that it should be looked at as a right for students, not privilege. I would like to see our transportation streamlined. In IPS, not all schools have to offer transportation for our children. But I'd also like the districts to acknowledge that most families do choose their school based on proximity to their home. So if that is something that would make a family have meaningful access to their school, then I want to see IPS consider a preferential tier of access for kids who have higher needs to access the school closest to them, if that's what that family chooses.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies. And I have one more thing. So I would like for you guys to take 30 seconds and think about something that we, so the audience, should take away from each of you. Just one thing. And then, like I said, 30 seconds, and then that will be it from me. And we can start with whoever's ready.
The one thing that I'm hoping that you all will take away from tonight's meeting is that I would like to be very accessible to the community. Again, that's the reason I'm running. And so your voice matters. I am going to be the commissioner of this district, of this school, and it's so encouraging to see you all out. We don't always see our families represented at the school board meetings, and so I want to make sure that your voice is heard at the board, and so hopefully we will be able to have more convenings just like this one, not just for an election, but during off election cycles as well.
Okay, I'll go. Okay, so I guess what I would like everyone to take away from me tonight is that I am an IPS mom that has been an IPS mom for 5 years, and because my littlest is in pre-K, I'm here for the next 13, and I'm so dedicated to IPS being the best school system for every child it serves. And I want to make sure that the quality of that education is not determined by the amount of privilege that child may have.
I think if there's one thing I want everyone to take away with them tonight, is that change is getting ready to happen, but you know that your children will be cared for. The goal is to make sure that all of our students have access to quality education, and education that represents who they are and that they can show up and be their authentic selves.
I'm here because I have been serving in Indianapolis as a social worker for more than 30 years in nonprofits, or, if I get paid to do the work, I serve. If I don't get paid, I serve. And so I've cared about kids for a very, very long time. I've worked with children from the guardian home to schools as a therapist and as a counselor. I've been that in-room sub. I've been the permanent building sub. Anywhere there were some children who had a need is where I've shown up. And so these past few years have been me wrestling with how many conversations have I had with people at a barbecue or around the water cooler at work as a graduate of IPS and one who's chosen it for her son, about the state of our district and frustrations that parents have and confusion that we all have about charters, innovation schools, public schools, what is going on, how do we access these schools. I'm here because I realize, as Nicole said earlier, things have changed, and they changed a long time ago. And the things that I find that we're arguing about, or the spilled milk that we're crying about, I came to the table as one who felt like it's equitable for me, as one who came from this district, never thought she could run for school board, and now has the opportunity to use my voice after serving all these years and learning all of these things. I want to bring that to the school board and be a person who can encourage and demand that they are transparent and accountable with us as parents. That those who really need to be at the table and those who have been disenfranchised by the system no longer feel like they don't have a voice, because we're going to hold them accountable to make sure that everybody who wants to be heard can be heard. I think that is important. When I say crying over spilled milk, we are frustrated about this district not being what it used to be, but it hasn't been that for a really long time. And it was just important to me, finally, to be at the table and lend my voice to this continual conversation about equity, inclusion, and making sure that we're accountable and transparent. I found myself in some rooms this week where it would have been easy to be quiet, but I was able to find that I feel passionately about this, and I'm not going to be quiet when it's time to ask you really hard questions. And so you can count on me to be a commissioner who will ask hard questions and will hold this district accountable for the sake of every child in this district. I'm running in District 3. It's the neighborhood I grew up in. I love my Indianapolis community, and I love the part of the city that I happen to live in as well. And I'm running to represent it, and looking for all of your support.
Well, thank you, ladies. So that was it from me. But before I go, I do want to say something. It was my pleasure to be here. It was my pleasure to do this. Gracias a todos los que estuvieron aquí. Es un placer para mí poder representar a la comunidad hispana, ¿verdad? Y no solo la comunidad hispana, también a los padres. And not only, it's a pleasure to be here to represent my Hispanic community, but not only that, parents as well. So thank you, and it was my pleasure once again.